April 8, 1943, Bletchley Park, Buckinghamshire, England. A cold mist rolls over the lawns of the Victorian estate, blurring the edges of the hedgerows like a veil pulled over a secret. The gravel path crunches beneath regulation boots as a young dispatch rider, Corporal Robert Payne of the Royal Corps of Signals, sprints across the courtyard, his breath clouding in the dawn air. In his gloved hands is a sealed canvas pouch, weather-beaten, stained with engine oil from the motorcycle that carried it here. The words stamped across the pouch are stark and absolute. Top secret, for code room only. He doesn't knock. He bursts into Hut 11, the heart of Britain's most guarded mystery. Inside, the air hums with low, constant noise, relays clicking, typewriters chattering, pencils tapping. Men and women from every corner of Britain, many barely out of university, hunch over desks under the harsh industrial lamps. Maps of Europe hang on the walls, plastered with colored pins tracking submarine wolf packs that stalk Allied convoys on the Atlantic. The room smells of damp wool coats, machine oil, and fear. But no one talks about fear here, because no one is allowed to talk about anything. Corporal Payne hands the pouch across a desk to a stern-faced clerk wearing a white armband stamped Ultra. She signs a receipt, without meeting his eyes. The pouch disappears through a steel door into a smaller room, the code vault. On the other side of that door sits the reason Payne risked blackout rides through countryside roads crawling with Home Guard patrols. Intercepted enemy communications from the German Lorenz SC-40 cipher machine, the encryption device used by Hitler's high command. Unlike the famous Enigma machine used by field units, Lorenz traffic carries the Reich's most sensitive strategic orders, the kind of messages that can win or lose the war. Through the small, reinforced window, we glimpse the operators, rows of women wearing headphones, hands poised over teleprinters as thick paper tape streams across the mechanisms. White tape, punched with tiny holes, pours into metal baskets like ribbon from a mechanical loom. Groups of analysts lean over the intercepted signals, their faces lit by the flickering glow of desk lamps. Among them is a wiry, intense man with circular spectacles and hair that refuses to obey military regulation. Bill Tutte, 26 years old, not a soldier but a mathematician drafted for his mind. His pencil hovers above a gridded sheet crowded with symbols and sequences. He studies the enemy message, nothing but random letters produced by a cipher too complex for manual solution. He mutters under his breath, almost to the paper itself. There's a pattern here. There has to be. Behind him, a teleprinter operator tears off a fresh strip of punched tape. Her voice is calm, precise. Another Lorenz transmission. From Berlin to Army Group South. Priority immediate. Bill looks up. His jaw tightens. Every time a convoy sails without their warning, sailors die in the freezing North Atlantic. He returns to the tape, searching for structure in chaos. Hours crawl by. Cigarette smoke hangs thick in the air. At 11:47 a.m., Tutte freezes. His pencil stops. He has seen it, an echo hidden deep inside the randomness. On two separate Lorenz messages intercepted days apart. He recognizes that German operators reused a key setting, an error the machine's designers swore was impossible. He stands abruptly, knocking over his chair. "Fetch me the previous transmission logs," he demands. The room jumps into motion. Operators scramble. Paper piles. The clatter of teleprinters accelerates. Tutte flips through pages, comparing columns, his finger tracing the repetition. But the pattern is too vast for pencils and paper. He knows they need speed, precision, automation. They need something that doesn't exist. Weeks later, May 1943. Rain lashes against the mismatched brick huts of Bletchley Park. Inside Hut 11A, tucked behind blackout curtains, a different kind of tension fills the air. Here the air smells like solder and burning insulation. A large wooden crate sits open on the floor. Inside is a tangled nest of wires, glowing valves, and rotary switches. At the center of the chaos stands engineer Tommy Flowers, a tall figure with steady hands and the calm confidence of someone who builds things that others call impossible. He wipes his palms on his trousers, then gently seats a glass vacuum tube into a socket. "You're sure about these valves?" asks a skeptical supervisor. "They've never been used like this, not on this scale." Tommy doesn't look up. "Valves can do more than power radios. They can think if you let them," Tutte watches enthralled. "Not think," he counters quietly. But they can calculate. Tommy smiles faintly. The kind of smile that says the difference doesn't matter, not tonight. Outside, thunder cracks. Inside, history charges itself like a coil preparing to spark. For the first time in human history, men are building a machine, not to amplify muscle power or to replace manual labor, but to automate logic itself, to break a code that Hitler believes unbreakable, to read the enemy's mind. The machine doesn't have a name yet, but soon, the world will know it as Colossus. May 1943, Hut 11A, Bletchley Park. The storm rages outside like a tantrum from the heavens. Sheets of rain slam against the corrugated roof, thunder rattling the windows. Inside the hut, the air is stifling. Heat radiates from soldering irons. Wires coil across the floor like metal vines, and every workbench is buried under circuits, blueprints, and crumpled cigarette packets. The walls seem too close, the ceiling too low. This is the birthplace of something the world isn't ready for. Tommy Flowers wipes a bead of sweat from his forehead as he leans over a half-assembled framework of steel chassis. He adjusts a row of valves, British EF-50 pentodes, small glass cylinders glowing a faint orange as they warm. Their dim light reflects off Tommy's eyes. He taps each one gently with the back of his knuckle. When the machine runs, he murmurs, every one of these must fire without fail. Across the room, Bill Tutte studies sheets of cipher patterns like a chess champion memorizing a deadly new gambit. At his elbow sits a reel of punched teleprinter tape, the German Lorenz cipher encrypted, mocking, relentless. It takes the Lorenz machine 12 wheels to generate a single message, Bill says, half to himself. 12 wheels. Millions of possible combinations. Enigma is amateur compared to this. Tommy doesn't look up from his wiring. That's why we're building a machine that never sleeps. Bill glances up, his voice barely above a whisper. A machine that can think faster than any team of mathematicians. Tommy's answer is a small, lopsided grin. The next hour passes in bursts of frantic energy. Tommy's engineering team, two young post office technicians named Harry Fensom and Sid Broadhurst, work with manic focus. They thread wires, assemble relay racks, and mount stepper switches scavenged from the telephone exchanges of London. Every component is catalogued and tested like ammunition for a gun aimed directly at Hitler. Electrical cables snake across the wooden floor. Labeled with grease pencil, wheel pattern input tape reader, high-speed counter output, message probability. At the back of the room, a massive black metal box dominates the space. Its front panel is studded with rotary switches and jack sockets. This is the test selector, built to compare the Lorenz cipher against hypothetical wheel patterns. Above it hover signs. Strictly no smoking, no unauthorized personnel 1, 500 volts, danger of death. And yet, the room reeks of tobacco. Bill approaches the machine, eyes wide. How many valves did you say? Tommy wipes his hands on a cloth. 1,500, maybe more. Bill gapes. No radio system uses more than 100. The War Office will say it's unstable, impossible to maintain. Impossible just means nobody's done it yet. Tommy replies. Midnight. Bletchley Park sleeps under blackout curtains, but Hut 11A is wide awake. Tommy and Bill stand shoulder to shoulder before a chalkboard filled with probability calculations. Bill has diagrammed the permutations of Lorenz key selections, rows upon rows of symbols, circles, and arrows pointing toward the machine. Tommy traces a finger along the logic paths. If your calculations are right, Tommy says, Colossus won't search by brute force. It will predict, rank choices, eliminate noise. Bill nods. Yes, instead of trying every combination, it will look for structure. It will look for, he stops. A dawning realization spreads across his face. It will look for patterns like we do. Tommy steps closer to the frame of the machine, resting a hand on the warm valves. That's it, Bill, he says quietly. You think in math. He nods to the machinery. They will think in electricity, but the Admiralty and the War Office don't see genius. They see risk. 2 days later, the hut door erupts open with a bang. A senior officer in Navy uniform marches in. Rainwater drips from his cap onto the concrete floor. Flowers, he barks. A word. Tommy steps aside as the officer thrusts a clipboard toward his chest. You're requesting 1,500 valves. You realize valves are rationed, yes? We need them for radar, for aircraft. Tommy holds steady. We need them for intelligence, to prevent aircraft from being shot down. The officer steps closer, lowering his voice to a threat. And if the machine fails? If those valves blow after 2 hours of running? Tommy doesn't break eye contact. They won't, and how can you be sure? He gestures toward the machine, to the immaculate rows of solder, the carefully spaced ventilation ducts. Because I've been running valve banks for the post office for years. Continuous operation, high heat, high load. They don't fail if you treat them right. Bill leans in, voice quiet but firm. We need this machine. The officer stares between them, weighing the risk, then finally snaps his clipboard shut. You have 6 weeks, he says. If it fails, we scrap it. The door slams behind him, silence fills the hut. And then, slowly, Tommy smiles. 6 weeks, he repeats, rolling up his sleeves. Let's build a miracle. The soldering iron hisses as it touches metal. Outside, thunder fades into dawn. Inside, a new kind of lightning begins to crackle. Not in the sky, but across circuits. The world's first computer is awakening. January 1944, Bletchley Park. Hut 11A. The winter wind slices across the frozen lawns, carrying the metallic scent of snow. The night sky is starless. Thick clouds smother moonlight as if even the heavens refuse to witness what is about to happen. Inside Hut 11A, the air quivers with tension. The machine stands completed, 7 feet tall, 6 feet wide. A wall of dials, switches, rotary selectors, and flickering glass valves. Thick black cables connect its frames like arteries. A high-speed paper tape reader capable of tearing through information at 5,000 characters per second sits mounted at its side like a mechanical jaw. This is Colossus Mark I, the world's first electronic, programmable digital computer. Tommy Flowers stands before it, posture rigid, tie loosened from weeks without sleep. His hands are steady, but the shadows under his eyes betray the cost. Bill Tutte holds the latest Lorenz intercept in his fingers, a loop of punched teleprinter tape. This particular message is believed to contain movement orders for German panzer divisions. If they can decode it, Allied commanders will know where the enemy will strike days before it happens. 3 other cryptanalysts, Captain Jerry Roberts, Max Newman, and Sheila Wren, watch from behind, their breath fogging in the cold. Everyone knows what is at stake. If Colossus fails, hundreds of sailors and soldiers will die in the coming weeks. If it succeeds, the war will turn. Tommy reaches for the master power switch, but he hesitates, not out of fear but out of reverence. He knows this moment isn't just a test, it is a boundary, a before and an after. He turns to Bill. Ready? Bill's voice is barely audible. Run it. Tommy presses the switch. The machine awakens with a low, rising hum. Rows of valves flicker to life. First a spark, then a steady orange glow, spreading across the chassis like sunrise. Fans roar, relays chatter. The paper tape threads into the reader. The tape moves, fast, too fast for the eye to follow. Just a blur of white streaming through the reader as sprocket holes flash like strobe lights. Rotary switches spin as the machine compares the encrypted message against millions of hypothetical wheel patterns. Max Newman whispers under his breath. It's alive. Bill steps closer, watching the counter display. Come on, show us something. The machine continues its furious calculation. Counters spin. Valves warm. A strange awe settles over the room. Sheila watches the tape fly. If that snaps, Tommy answers without looking up. It won't. Every second is agony. Bill checks his notebook, making rapid calculations. It should be producing a score by now. Max's jaw tightens. If it doesn't, we're finished. Tommy leans closer to the logic frame, listening, actually listening to the machine's rhythm. The click of relays. The whir of fans. The stutter of counters like a heartbeat. Check the wheel start position, he says suddenly. Bill leaps to the selector panel and adjusts a dial. A small correction, but enough. Tommy slaps the start button again. The tape roars through. A moment later, a single lamp blinks on, then another, then 3 more. Numbers begin to appear on the counter display, probabilities climbing in real time. Bill grips the edge of the console. That's it. That's the chi-square peak. It's isolating the wheel patterns. Max can't contain himself.
It's solving it.
In minutes, not weeks. Sheila presses her hand to her mouth, eyes widening. My God. Tommy doesn't speak. He simply watches, the faintest smile forming as the machine does what no group of humans could do fast enough to matter. Colossus keeps analyzing, keeps eliminating improbable keys, keeps thinking. Finally, the machine stops. A teleprinter beside it bursts into life, hammering out letters, German plain text. Bill tears the paper strip free, scanning it. Hitler's command is ordering a movement of panzer reserves to Hungary. They're reinforcing the Eastern Front. Max lets out a shaky laugh. We did it. We actually... Tommy cuts him off quietly, eyes on the glowing valves. No, he says. We just changed the war. Within hours, copies of the decrypted Lorenz message are on a secure line to London. A courier aircraft will carry them to Eisenhower's Allied command. This intelligence will help shape the strategy that leads to the destruction of German formations in Eastern Europe, and free critical Allied resources for the upcoming invasion of France. And yet no one outside this hut will ever know. Not for years, not for decades. Bill watches as Tommy powers down the machine. The valves dim one by one, the hut falling into darkness. You realize what you've built, Bill says quietly. It isn't just a code breaker. Tommy nods, voice barely above a whisper. It's the first of its kind. Bill smiles faintly. A machine that thinks, Tommy corrects him gently. No. A machine that gives us the power to think faster. Outside, snow begins to fall. Inside, the world's first computer goes still, silent, secret, unstoppable. Tomorrow, they will begin building Colossus Mark II. Faster, larger, deadlier to German encryption, and the war will never be the same. February 1944, Bletchley Park, Hut 11A. Snow melts into slush outside the windows. The lawn is scarred with boot tracks and tire ruts from supply lorries. Inside Hut 11A, Colossus Mark I runs non-stop. Its valves glow like a miniature city at dusk. Rows of orange lights humming with quiet electrical life. The machine is no longer an experiment. It is a weapon. Tommy Flowers leans over the console, monitoring the tape feed. The paper flies through the reader at impossible speed, 5,000 characters per second, so fast that the human eye can barely register it. The sound is hypnotic, a ripping blur, like fabric tearing in an endless seam. Bill Tutte sits at his workbench, analyzing yesterday's decrypts. New Lorenz messages arrive every hour. Thick paper rolls handed in by runners from the intercept stations in Kent, who tap the transmissions from German high command to frontline units. Each tape is stamped, German high level, top secret. Some of the messages reveal troop movements. Others mention supply shortages. One contains a chilling line. Der Führer is pleased with the efficiency of the Eastern operation. Bill underlines it with his pencil. Efficiency. The word tastes like soot. At midnight, the hut door opens, not with a knock but with urgency. A WAF operator. Corporal Margaret Allen strides in, her boots streaked with mud. Her cheeks are flushed with cold. Her hands clutch a sealed folder. She salutes even though most of the cryptanalysts barely notice rank. Urgent Lorenz intercept, Berlin to Normandy coast. The room freezes. Bill stands up so fast his chair topples. Normandy? Tommy exchanges a glance with Max Newman, who has appeared from the adjoining hut, notebook tucked under his arm. Bill threads the tape into Colossus. Start from chi pattern scan, he instructs. Tommy adjusts selector switches, his fingers flying. Ready? The tape reader snaps to life. The machine begins its analysis. Valves heat, relays click, counters spin. Probability spikes flash across the panel. Sheila leans over Bill's shoulder. Is this just pre-invasion planning? The question hangs heavy in the air. The Allies have been stockpiling men and material for months. But the Germans don't know where the landings will happen. If Lorenz messages reveal the German defense posture, Eisenhower will know where the enemy is weakest. The console lights begin to pattern, bright bursts indicating wheel combinations falling into place. Numbers. Scroll on the counter. Bill slaps the teleprinter. Button dot. A machine gun-like chatter fills the room. German plain text. Prints line by line. Max snatches the strip. His voice tightens. They're moving a panzer division north toward Calais. Bill exhales. Then the deception is working. Operation Bodyguard. The Allied plan to convince Hitler their invasion will land at Calais instead of Normandy. Might succeed thanks to Colossus, Sheila murmurs. We're shaping the battlefield before it exists. Tommy looks at the machine. Not as a creation, but as a responsibility. When this is over, he says, no one will know what was done here. Bill sets down his pencil. They won't have to know. The boys who land on that beach will live because of it. March, 1944, 3:17 a.m. The hut is nearly silent except for Colossus's steady rhythm. Tommy catches himself drifting asleep at his workbench. He forces his eyes open and takes a sip of cold tea. He hasn't seen his family in days. The post office engineers under him are exhausted. Dark circles under their eyes. Fingers burned from soldering. Bill watches him from across the room. You should go home, Bill says quietly. Tommy doesn't respond. Just keeps adjusting a rotary selector. You haven't slept properly in a week. Tommy finally turns. Every hour Colossus isn't running. Someone somewhere dies needlessly. Bill holds his gaze, and when the war ends, what then? Tommy pauses. We'll have created something so powerful, they won't be able to imagine the world without it. Bill nods slowly. They also won't let the world know it existed. Later that morning, a military lorry arrives carrying large crates marked with stencils. Colossus Mark II. Components handle with extreme Caremax beams as the crates are unloaded. Our second machine, 4 times faster and twice as flexible. Bill watches as Tommy immediately starts barking orders, moving panels, rearranging wiring paths, verifying voltage tolerances. The second Colossus will be ready in weeks, and they'll need every second. April 1944. Colossus Mark II comes online, 10 times faster than its predecessor, capable of trying thousands of wheel pattern alignments automatically. The first test runs, valve banks flare to life. The machine roars, the tape reader screaming at new top speed. A WAF operator gasps. It's beautiful. Tommy doesn't smile. It's war, he answers. Hours later, a decrypted message prints out, no armored reserves near Normandy. A silence falls over the hut. Sheila whispers, we'll get through the beaches. Bill stares at the words, knowing what it means for thousands of soldiers preparing to cross the channel, knowing that the machine in front of them, the glowing metal, the crackling valves, has saved men who don't know these rooms exist and never will. June 3, 1944, Bletchley Park, Hut 11A. The air inside the hut feels electrified. A storm of anticipation, fear, and exhaustion strains against the blackout windows. Colossus Mark II runs at full capacity. Tape reels spinning so fast they blur like spokes on a racing bicycle. Operators move with mechanical precision, feeding tape, adjusting selectors, logging results. Bill Tutte stands with a fresh Lorenz intercept in his gloved hands. From Berlin to the 15th Army, he reads. Top priority. Encrypted using yesterday's key schedule. Tommy Flowers looks up sharply. They reused the key? Bill's voice tightens. Operator error. Again. A reuse means the Germans, without knowing, have handed Bill and his team the key to unlock their message. He threads the tape. Tommy adjusts the selector wheels. Before he presses the start switch, he leans close to the machine, like a conductor poised before an orchestra. Let's see what High Command is hiding. He pushes the switch. Colossus erupts into motion, valves glowing with fierce amber light, fans thundering. The tape reader devours the message. Rows of counters tally probability spikes at dizzying speed. To anyone else, it would look like chaos. To Tommy and Bill, it's a heartbeat. A rhythm of logic. Electrical thought. The teleprinter slams to life. Printing decrypted plaintext. Reinforcements will remain at Pas de Calais. Normandy attack believed faint. Max Newman reads the words aloud, stunned. Bill whispers, they're convinced. Sheila stares at the strip in her hands. We just tricked the Wehrmacht. No cheering, no shouting, no celebrating. Just a shared, breathless understanding. The Germans will not move their armored reserves to Normandy. They have taken Hitler's encrypted orders and bent them into a shield. June 4, 1944, 0200 hours, a WAF dispatch runner hurries into Hut 11A, Rain drips from her coat. Ultra to London rooted. Eisenhower has the decrypt. Bill slumps back into his chair, overcome with the weight of it. He rubs his eyes beneath his spectacles. Tommy watches him, voice low. Get some sleep, Bill. Bill shakes his head. Not until the landing begins. Tommy sighs, returns to tightening a screw on one of the logic frames. These machines can replace sleep. People can't. June 5th, 1944, 23:40 hours. The storm rages over the English Channel. Wind howls, rain lashes against the huts like handfuls of gravel. Everyone at Bletchley Park is awake. Hut 11A breathes an eerie stillness. Operators sit, at their posts, waiting for the first intercepts of the coming battle. Coffee steams in tin cups. Cigarettes glow like fireflies in trembling fingers. Sheila stares at the clock on the wall. Bill doesn't take his eyes off the paper tape. Just one more intercept before they launch. Tommy nods. The teleprinter rings. A fresh Lorenz message begins tapping across the tape. Bill reads the decrypt as it prints. All units, maintain position. Enemy landing expected at Calais. Bill's hands shake. He passes the strip to Sheila, who reads it silently, lips parting in disbelief. They're not moving their tanks. Tommy leans back against the console. Then God help the men on those boats. June 6, 1944, 06:30 hours. On the beaches of Normandy, artillery fire shakes the world. Thousands of landing craft push toward the surf. The sea churns with machine gun tracers. Sand, blood, and seawater mix as soldiers claw forward across Omaha, Utah, Gold, Juneau, Sword. Some will survive. Many will not. But one thing is certain. No panzer divisions are racing toward Normandy. They sit idle at Pas-de-Calais, paralyzed by a deception reinforced by a machine no German general knows exists. Back at Bletchley Park, Sheila stares at a fresh message printing at her station. 15th Army commanded to hold position until further notice. She turns to Tommy and Bill. They're staying. They're actually staying. Bill doesn't speak. He just sinks into his chair, face buried in his hands. Tommy watches Colossus hum and glow. Not triumph, not joy, just relief sharp enough to hurt. The machine keeps spinning, working, analyzing, saving lives in silence. June 7th, 1944, dawn. Outside hut. 11A, sunlight breaks through the clouds, the first clear sky in days. Tommy steps outside and closes his eyes. For the first time, he hears birds instead of machinery. The air smells of wet grass and new hope. Bill joins him, folding his arms against the cold. They'll never know, will they? Bill asks softly. The soldiers. The world. What this machine did. Tommy shakes his head. No. Bill studies the horizon. We bent history, and no one will ever say our names. Tommy glances back toward the hut, toward Colossus. We don't need them to say our names, he murmurs. We just need them to live. They stand together as the sun rises over Bletchley Park. Somewhere across the sea, an army advances because of them, because of a machine born of wire, fire, and logic, because Colossus thought faster than Hitler. July 1945, Bletchley Park, England. The war in Europe is over. Celebration ripples through London, through factories, through the homes of the men and women who fought on every front. But here, in the quiet remains of Bletchley Park, a different kind of silence lingers. Hut 11A is dark. The valves of Colossus lie cold, the hum of electricity gone. Only the faint smell of burnt metal and old insulation remains. Engineers and cryptanalysts walk the hushed halls like ghosts. Papers lie stacked neatly on desks. Intercepts, decrypts, and analysis reports that will never see the light of day. Tommy Flowers walks slowly among the machines, now dismantled piece by piece. Each removed valve, each cable coiled and labeled, is a reminder of the hours spent in feverish work, the weeks of sleepless nights, the months of risk under a war that demanded secrecy above all else. He pauses at the frame where Colossus once roared, fingers brushing over the cold steel. We built a machine that changed history, he says softly, almost to himself. And no one will ever know. Bill Tutte stands beside him, adjusting his spectacles. He picks up a small scrap of punch tape and holds it between his fingers. It feels fragile, yet in its perforations lies the fate of nations. And maybe that's how it should be, he murmurs. Some things are too powerful to parade in the daylight. In the months following the war, the story of Colossus is buried deep, its existence classified under Official Secrets Act, its contributions woven into shadows. Engineers and mathematicians disperse into civilian life, carrying knowledge they cannot share, memories they cannot speak of. The world celebrates the breaking of Enigma, another triumph, but Lorenz, Colossus, and the hundreds of lives saved through intelligence in the shadows remain unknown to history for decades. Yet the seed planted by Tommy Flowers, Bill Tutte, Max Newman, Sheila Wren, and the countless operators grows silently. The ideas that powered Colossus, electronic logic, programmability, rapid computation, begin to shape the future. Universities in Britain and across the Atlantic quietly start to explore electronic computing. Engineers who once ran valve banks in secret begin to push technology further. Max Newman's teaching at Cambridge inspires a new generation. Tommy's methods in valve reliability, error correction, and high-speed computation form the backbone of machines that will eventually fill rooms not with war, but with science and commerce. By the 1950s, Colossus's descendants appear in research labs and corporate offices. The world awakens to the age of digital computing, unaware that its dawn was first lit by the quiet hum of a code-breaking machine in a misty English park. Back at Bletchley, a handful of veterans sometimes wander the grounds, lingering at the now quiet huts. The lawns stretch under an open sky. The sun catches the corners of windows where once eyes strained into the glow of machines. Sheila Wren sits on a bench watching birds flit across the grass. "We built something impossible," she says, almost to the wind. Something that should never have existed, and yet it saved thousands of lives. Bill Tutte leans against a tree, eyes distant. "And the world will never know." Tommy Flowers approaches quietly, hands in his pockets. He smiles faintly. "Maybe not. But that's the point. Some victories are meant to remain in the shadows." He pauses, looking toward the horizon, where the sunlight catches the edges of the Victorian estate. The machines are gone. The tapes are gone. The war is over, but the future, untold, unimagined, awaits. And in every modern computer, every networked calculation, every digital decision, a spark of Colossus lives on. A machine built from valves, wire, and determination to outthink Hitler became the first light in the digital age. History may have forgotten their names, but the world will forever bear the imprint of their work. And in that quiet, hidden victory, Bletchley Park whispers the truth. Sometimes the most powerful battles are fought in silence. Sometimes the heroes never march in parades. Sometimes a machine, born in secret, can change the course of humanity. The hum of Colossus is gone, but its legacy endures.